Welcome to another episode of Candid Moments with Candace. Today I have a new friend of mine joining us. He is a photographer and a fellow podcaster. And from Pembroke, Ontario, please help me welcome John Butler to the microphone. Hi, John.
Hello, how are you, Candace?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. It's been a busy day, but in a good way.
Good. Well, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Thank you. What are 3 things today that you are grateful for?
Well, of course, as every day, I'm always grateful that I wake up in the morning.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for the health that I do have because there's a lot of stuff going around these days in the last 3 years. So I'm glad for my health and glad that my family is healthy and they're doing well.
Good. My turn. I woke up happy and healthy. I spoke to my bestie on the phone. The weather, that should be number 1. The weather is beautiful. It's the 23rd of August. It's sun and clouds, mostly sunny, nice and hot. It's 30 degrees in Sudbury. My hand therapy went well, and I'm grateful for this interview.
I'm grateful for to be here with you.
Thank you. So some people don't know that we had a podcast episode a few months ago on your show, and it was about me and sharing my story, but now it's your turn to share your story. You your podcast is called Butler's Babble.
Yeah, Butler's Babble. Yeah.
I love it. What inspired the title?
It was actually funny because when March 2020 happened and everything shut down, we were stuck at home, of course. And I'm the type that, yeah, I can stay home for a little while. You need a break every now and then, but then you get antsy. You want to do stuff. And I miss people. I'm a total extrovert. I'm not an introvert at all. I am out there. I'm schmoozing with people. That's just the way I am. And so I sat at home and I thought, what am I going to do? And I put the computer on and went on my Facebook, was typing back and forth to friends. And just out of the blue, I don't know why, I just went on Facebook Live one day and just said, hey, but everybody, I'm sitting here, I'm having a coffee. What's everybody else doing today? And that just started talking. And before you know it, an hour and a half, 2 hours went by of me just talking to whoever wanted to come and watch my thing. And then this went on for a couple weeks and it turned into I started calling, I think, coffee time with John or something like that. And every day at a certain time in the afternoon, I'd come on live and just chat for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes it'd go 3 hours. And my friends from all over the world that I know would come on and we'd have 30, 40 people in there because we're all stuck at home. So we just sit there and chat about our days and laugh about stuff. And somebody came on one time and said, oh my God, there's that Butler babbling again. And it started thinking, I'm like, Butler's Babble, actually, that sounds pretty good. And so about a week or so later, instead of coffee time with John, I said, okay, tomorrow at 1:00, we're going to do another Butler's Babble. And we would just do that. And it went for a while. And then when I stopped doing it, because everything opened, we got back to work and that, it just went in the back burner. But then when I was thinking about that podcast that I wanted to start and what to call it, that was the first thing that came to mind. It's like Butler's Babble. Why not? And it just came to fruition. And now it's a live entity.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
That's so great. I can relate to you because I didn't think of my podcast title either. It was a friend of mine. And it was before I thought about doing the podcast. I was doing something else, but he suggested a show titled Candid Moments with Candace. And I thought, hey, there's a ring to it.
Exactly.
I'm going to think about that. And then when the pandemic happened, it kind of was similar to you. It's fun how things kind of just happen harmoniously when they do.
Especially with my life, I find a lot of the positive things that's happened to me all happened by accident. And not everything, of course, but some of the things in the last, I want to say 15 years, 20 years, some of the best things for me came from just things that happened. It wasn't planned. So
isn't that great?
Yeah.
Nice. Your subtitle for the podcast is Empower, Motivate, Inspire.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Not necessarily in that order. That's what I do put it. It's like, yeah, it's a podcast to motivate, inspire, and empower people to change their lives for the better, basically.
by sharing their story?
Basically, yes, we have basically we try and bring on everyday people. That they don't have to be famous people. I mean, if we can get some famous people on there, by all means, because they go through struggles too. But so far, the four people that we've had on there, only one's maybe kind of a little bit of a local celebrity in their area, in the Toronto area. But out of
Sharing.
it was Corey, the one we had last time.
What was
He's actually been on TV shows and stuff like that. But
right? But who was your first one? Was it
first one
Shelley?
was Carrie Lee Brown.
Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie
Okay.
Lee Brown, and she's a magazine editor basically,
And an author as
and an
well.
author, and she's a publisher now because she'll publish books for people. She'll even like your book that you wrote. She did her own like that, and she published it herself. She wrote it, she edited it, she published it. Now, if she has her own website up that you can actually send your material if you want to write an article and get it published, you can send it to her. She for a certain cost, I don't know what it is, she'll edit it for you, and then she'll even try and help you get it published. And if you want to write a book, not only can she edit it for you, but she can actually publish it herself. She started
That-
doing her own
That's
publishing too.
amazing.
Yeah.
I've been giving some advice to a couple friends of mine who wanted to write and publish a book. But
Mhm.
here's a question for you when you're talking about publishing. Who prints
That I'm
it?
not sure. That I'm
Oh,
not sure.
okay.
You'd have to talk to her about that. She publishes it, but and then she sells hers on Amazon and through her website.
Okay.
And that was
Amazon,
yours was I think Indigo or something like that too, I think.
it's at, yes, Indigo as well.
Mhm.
They take 55%.
Yeah,
So
the
yeah,
printing, I'm not sure. And then distributing, I guess it just depends on who you want to distribute it. If you want to do it yourself or if you want to get through Amazon or Indigo or whoever.
because the distributors will take a cut.
Yeah.
It's not, if unless you're the next Stephen King or J.K. Rowling's, it's not going to really make you
No.
a whole
But it
lot.
gets your word out there though.
It does. And if you can afford the debt, or if you could just afford that project, by
Mhm.
all means do it. It's an amazing experience. It's lots of fun, and you help impact other people. Is there a book in you?
I think there is. I just haven't thought of what. I know on the photography side, I've always talked about writing a how-to book, like a photography 101, things like that. There's so many of them out there, but still there's always things always change, things are always evolving. So I'm thinking of doing that because I do teach photography here in my hometown here. But so that's one thing. But I think there is a book with some of the stuff that's happened in the last, say, 15 years in my life with my wife and with her strokes and stuff and how we dealt with it. And on top of that, now that I do this Butler's Babble, I'm thinking that maybe within a year or so of doing that, with all the stories, you never know. Maybe there's a book coming out of there of some memoirs of Butler's Babble. Who knows? And maybe we can talk, go through a lot of the different, like your podcast and Carrie's and Corey's and Rob's,
Yeah.
and we have an awesome one coming up in a couple weeks from a local gentleman here, and then I have one booked already for October. So once we start getting a whole bunch of them, who knows? Maybe I can go through them and sit down, talk with Carrie, and go through some stuff and put something together. Maybe a memoirs part one or something, book one, memoirs of Butler's Babble, and talk about our experiences with
That'd
Butler's
be
Babble.
interesting.
Yeah,
If it's close to your heart, you'll definitely do it.
definitely. I always come back from every podcast learning something new. Still like nothing. It always amazes me the different stories that people have and how it does touch you, because it does
Mhm.
affect different people in different ways. And each one of your stories that's been on my podcast are all different.
Right.
So it does, it shows you the humanity that's out there. So
Yeah. So can we get deep and personal and talk about
whatever you
struggle,
want.
strife, adversity, and how we overcome those?
Of course, we don't have any of that. We're perfect, right? We never have struggles in that, right?
Hey, you know what? I was reading something the other day about something being perfect and living our lives toward an end goal of being
Mhm.
perfect. I think perfect, that word, it's just like the word normal.
Yeah.
I
What is
think,
normal?
or success. Everybody has their own definition of what
Exactly.
success is, or perfection, or normal,
Mhm.
or crazy, or just to.
Mhm. I know. I think when you're thinking of life itself, you can say that you can have somebody that's in their 90s on their deathbed, and before they're ready to pass on, they can look and say, you know what? I had my struggles, I had my downtimes, but all in all, I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. And I think my life was perfect. Who says it wasn't? Just because it wasn't what we conceive of what perfect is, to
Right.
him, that was a perfect life. And so to me, that's what perfect means. It doesn't mean it has to be exactly 100% this way or that way.
Right. When we take our struggles, and it helps shape us
Hmm.
too. I
It
think it
does.
doesn't matter what happens to us, it's how we react.
Yep.
You
It
take
is.
certain people and you put them in an emergency situation, some of them will freak out and the other ones will say, okay, listen. And they're the leaders, the ones that say, breathe,
Mhm.
calm down, tell me what happened. I actually heard that on earlier today. But or someone will say, okay, what is the first thing you do?
Mhm.
Call 911. No, you check to see if they're breathing. You know what I mean? Put them
Mhm.
on their side. You know, like just kind of, that's just an example. Um, I have a bestie who saved my life, who was very responsible at that age, who had her St. John's ambulance babysitting course and who knew CPR. She didn't freak out. Yeah, maybe she did for a moment and she screamed, and but she knew to make sure that like the person was breathing.
Yeah.
And yes, we're talking about me.
Mhm.
And just, I don't know, some people are just really calm in situations. Me, I'm learning. I'm
Mhm.
still learning how to remain calm, and I have my frustration and my ways of coping, but
Yep.
still learning about
No,
things.
and I agree with you. I mean, it's just a matter of, I think I've learned over the years how to keep a cool head. Don't get me wrong, I can have my moments, but for the most part, I remember, what was it, about a year and a half ago, April, my youngest daughter, who's 14 going on 15, had a car accident where she was crossing the street and got hit by a car. And it's one of the worst calls a parent can get, of course, because we're sitting here at the studio, my wife and I, in our office there, going through some pictures, and the phone rings. We don't recognize the number, but I'm like, okay, well, answer it. So she answers it, and it was my daughter's friend saying, "Is this Peyton's mom?" And she's like, "Yeah." She goes, and she couldn't talk, and that she was having, so she gave it to a friend of hers. She goes, "Yeah, is it Peyton's mom?" We're like, "Yeah, what's the matter?" And they're like, "Well, Peyton had a little bit of an accident, and she's on the road right now, and the ambulance is here. You might want to come." And we're like, "Where are you?" So they told us. And luckily, it was only like 5-10 minutes down the road, about 10 minutes down the road. So we said, "Okay, we're on our way." And we get in the car. I'm like, tell my wife, "Do you want me to drive?" Because she was ready to drive. And she's like, "No, I'm driving. I'm driving." But I knew she was shook up. I was shook up too. But she's in there and she's crying and she's doing this. And I'm like, "Calm down. We don't even know what's going on yet. Well, let's get there first. Find out what, if it's serious, this and that." I was the one keeping the cool head. And it wasn't until we got there and we saw that she's a numbness. Yeah, she had some injuries in that, but she was fine. She was talking. She was even laughing and that. So then you
Conscious,
take your
obviously.
sigh of relief in that. But the whole way there, my wife was basically in hysterics. Whereas I was the one keeping the cool head and just saying, "Well, wait till we get there. Let's see what's going on. I'm nervous too, but we don't know the whole story. Let's wait until we get there." And I think that sometimes just comes with time. It comes with just life, basically living life and seeing. Um, you learn that kind of thing, I think, because if not, maybe 20 years from now, or 20 years ago, when I was 20 years younger, I could have been like my wife. I might have been in hysterics too. You never know. But and maybe too, because she's 15 or going to be 15 and my other daughter's 21, we've we've went through all the things that you go through raising a child. So
Right.
you learn that not every little thing you got to go off, get all wrapped out about. You never, sometimes you think it's serious and then you find out it's not. So
20 years ago, if you would have told me that I'd be this controlling aunt, I would have said no. I would be the fun aunt. Well, a couple weeks ago, I heard that from my family. And when we crossed the street, my nephew was 9. Okay, he'll be
yeah.
10 at the end of the year, but he's 9 right now. When we cross the street, I put my hand out and I say, hold my hand. He says, Auntie, I can see. I say, but I feel safer when you're holding my hand. Because
Mhm.
what is Auntie's job? He said, to be nice. I said, well, yeah, of course. But my job is is to be responsible because I'm responsible for you.
Mhm.
I said, what is your job? And your job is to be a good little nephew, and your job is to use your manners and to listen. I
Mhm.
said, and I have to be a good auntie, so just hold my hand. But the other day we went camping, so it was a campground, but I want to make sure when we're on the road, I want him close. And he says, Auntie, I just want to let you know I'm safe. I'm safe. You don't, I can see there's no cars coming and you don't need to hold my hand. So it's kind of like my baby he doesn't
She's
want to
growing
hold my
up.
hand.
Yep.
Hurts me. I don't know. Why don't you want to hold my hand? It's my job to be
Yeah.
looking after him.
Yeah.
And
It's hard to let go because my youngest, she's 14 going on 15, but she was always a daddy's girl. And so when there's stuff that she's doing and she comes like, Dad, I can do it myself. I'm old enough now. You start to think of it, even though she's going 15, it's like
it's
still,
true though.
I
She's
do
a
that with my
woman now.
21-year-old too. It's like she was a mummy's girl mostly, but still there's times when they need their dad. And you always know when she came up and said, Dad, you love me, right? You know she's asking for something. And but now she's at 21 and she's like, Dad, I don't need you to always hold my hand doing this and doing that. I can do it myself. I'm a big girl now. I'm 21. I'm an adult now. So and you got to learn to let go sometimes.
Oh, that I'm learning that.
It's hard.
We only have the one kid in the family, and I think it's going to be the only grandchild. So he's like, I'm still his little
Hmm.
buddies, but I don't know. I want to parent him.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't need to hear that from you. You're not my mom. So shut up. Well,
Yeah.
he doesn't use those
No,
words
I know what you
there.
mean though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm my 21-year-old, you never know. She's at that age now, so who knows? Maybe she'll have children one day, sometime in the near future, and I'll be a grandpa, and then I could be the fun grandpa, not be the strict person anymore.
Isn't that fun? Because
Yeah,
then you can spoil them. Hopefully, if they don't live with you, because then you can
yeah,
send them home after you
exactly.
feed them sweets.
Yep. Feed them all with sugar and send them home to mom and dad.
Mhm.
Mom and dad said I can't have this. I don't care. I'm not mom and dad. I'm grandpa.
Yeah.
I'm
Shh.
papa.
You don't tell mom and dad. Yeah. Grandparents are awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is it Colleen?
Yes.
How's your wife Colleen doing?
She's doing awesome. She actually just left just before we started. Actually, she went to go home.
Does
So
she
she's doing
drive?
very well. Yep, she drives.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
So, 'cause she
her
had,
her problem was like her stroke. That's what you're talking about, and she
yeah.
had that back in 2007.
Oh,
So
okay. I thought it was recent.
no, she that was her second stroke. She had one around 2003 when our oldest was about 2 years old. But that was just a month. She didn't even know she was having it. It wasn't until she went to the doctor that night or the day after, and they said, "Oh yeah, you just had a mild stroke." But there was no symptoms. They think it was from birth control pills, and but she didn't have any setbacks after that. They got her on the medications she needed to be on and blood thinners, and she's been fine. It wasn't until we were pregnant with our youngest that because of she's on blood thinners and things like that, they had to try and regulate it properly so that when she's giving birth, they had to get her off enough time before that because they don't want her to bleed out too much because it thins out the blood.
Right.
But when the baby was born, then it's basically a crapshoot because they got to figure out when to put her back on again because they still don't want her clotting, but at the same time, because they don't know why her body clots so easily. That was the problem. Is she's basically on blood thinners the rest of her life. They don't know why her blood clots so easily. So um, she, I guess they weren't able to get her on fast enough, and the baby was born in October, and in December, about 3 days before Christmas something she just wasn't feeling right. We knew it, so we took her to the hospital and we got her in there. It was late at night and found out that yeah, she's going through a stroke while we were there. And but it was already past apparently the time when they can give her a certain medication that can stop it in time. And so she went through that night and she ended up being hospitalized for 4 months locally here in Pembroke. And she would go back and forth from this hospital and um, Ottawa's General Hospital, which is about an hour and a half from here. They would many times she almost died on them 4 times in the hospital. They don't know why she was clotting so easy. They had her on blood thinners there, but it was just she was going through a rough time, and it was all from a clot that they believe there was a clot in her heart that got out, because when she had her first stroke and they looked into it, they found out that she had a hole in her heart. So we're going back a little bit here. So back in 2003, when this happened, they found out she had a hole in her heart. And when you're born, you're automatically born, you have a hole in your heart. And after you take your first breaths and stuff, it's supposed to close up. And for some people, that doesn't happen. And you can go a whole life and not even realize that. But that's what happened with her stroke. They found out is that it didn't close up on her, and that she had an aneurysm in her heart also. So what they did was they put what's called a Pfo closure, which is like almost looks like a reverse umbrella. And they went in through the groin area, and they went in and they put that into the whole area there. And over time, the skin from the heart wall just sort of seals it up. Basically, it just seals it over and it closes that hole. And I think they said at the time she was 99% sealed. There was like no way. They said if it stays like that, you'll be fine the rest of your life. The hole won't affect you and things like that. Well, when she got pregnant, she ended up having an enlarged heart. Her heart enlarged a bit, and by enlarging, it opened up that hole. And so during that 2 months after pregnancy, she must have had a clot in her heart that came out through that hole, and it went right to her brain. And that's what caused the big major stroke in 2007, where she was hospitalized 4 months. She ended up losing her whole left side.
The
And
mobility
yeah,
wise.
the mobility, she was paralyzed on her whole left side, and she had to do some rehab to get that. So she walks now, like basically that was December of '07 and April of '08. So 4 months later, they basically didn't think there was anything else they could do for her. And they were basically sending her home with the thought that they would probably never see her again.
Oh
They
my God.
thought that
Yeah.
you'd be comfortable at home and things like that. Well, when she got home, I think a lot of it was depression, because once she got home, we stayed with her parents who lived around the corner from us, because they had a more one level house, bungalow type of thing, as opposed to ours, which is 3 levels and all the stairs. And once she got there and we were staying there for a while, I think she started getting better because she wasn't stuck at the hospital for 4 months, eating hospital food, only seeing us for half an hour here, half an hour there every day. Um, she had a newborn baby that she wasn't seeing except for when I bring her at least once a day to go see her and stuff. And our other daughter was 6 at the time. So we I think that helped her get better, because just being home and with her family and eating normally and getting to go out and sit outside, and that made her, and she got better and better. And here she is, 15 years later almost, and she walks and she still has a limp. She has what's called a drop foot. So the
I'm
muscle
from,
in the
I'm-
ankle there wants to go down
yeah.
whenever she lifts, and it also wants to curve a little bit. So she does have a brace, but she doesn't wear it anymore. She just walks on her own. So she has that kind of limp, almost like if you remember Terry Fox when he did his run, the way he used to his mobility used to be when he was running, that kind of same thing, where it's almost like you're lifting your whole hip and everything up.
Yeah.
And so she does that, but she walks on her own. She drives. Her left hand never 100% came back. It's about 85, 90. And she was left-handed. So she had to relearn to do everything with her right hand, sign and write with her right
Hey,
hand, using a
there,
mouse, everything.
I went to hand therapy today. There's this company in town at the NorCap building called I Regained, and they're testing this on people to regain the strength in their hand, and it's
Hmm.
helping me so much. So if you're interested in bringing her there, I know that's kind of a drive, but I'm sure they'll take her.
Hmm. No, it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah.
But no, she's with us. She's happy. That was the thing. I mean, people say, yeah, she might have these little setbacks, but she's still alive, and my daughter still have their mom here. I mean,
Oh, wow.
when we never thought she was ever going to make it. So, but she's on medications basically for the rest of her life, just to keep her she has to go usually at least once every couple weeks to a month, and to get her INR levels checked for her blood. So they'll go and they'll take her blood and then send it in, and that day she'll get a email from the Ottawa thrombosis saying, okay, your INR's at this level, so keep taking the same amount of pills you've been taking now. Or they might
In
say,
her
okay, it's
blood.
a little high or a little low, so take 1.5 pills, or I'll take 2 pills, like depending on what her levels are, because her blood level has to be between 2 and 3 for the thickness and thinness. And if
Okay.
it's in between 2 and 3, they just say, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. If it's too thick or too thin, whether if it's over 3 or under 2, when they do their levels, they'll call and say, okay, your levels were a little low this time. Is there a reason why? Have you changed your diet? Because that could help. And if not, they'll say, okay, instead take on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, take the 2, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays take 1.5 pills. So they got to regulate basically. And so
Okay.
she'll be doing that probably the rest of her life. There are other, like she's on carvedilol, which is warfarin, and that's what regulates her blood, but and thins it out. But there
How
are
old is
other
she?
ones out there, but none of the ones that were out there are worth risking right now because this one seems to work. And so if it works, why play around? It's her blood, and that you don't want to play around with that. So
Right.
we just keep it the way it is, and she's here. So
Good. How old is she?
she will be turning. Well, she's going to kill me for this. 40, 44 this year.
Oh, she's young.
Yeah. So her first one was 2003, so she would have been probably, I want to say, early mid 20s. And when 2007, she would have been 29, I guess, when she had her last stroke.
Wow. Yeah,
So
do you know, like medically, I only know this because I test the girls
mhm.
at my hand therapy because they're kinesiology students. And I only know about the brain for
Yep.
the psych courses I took and having to survive a brain injury. Do you know the two different types of strokes, their names?
Offhand, no.
What you think of like swelling or like a bleed. So you
Hmm.
think of a hemorrhage. So it's
Okay.
hemorrhagic and ischemic.
Okay.
Do you know which one she had?
No idea. I know she had a clot that went from her heart and it went right up to the back of her brain there, and that's what caused it. So which one that would categorize, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it was all because with the pregnancy, her heart enlarged. If the heart didn't enlarge and it stayed the same the whole time, she probably would have been fine because that clot would have stayed in her heart. As long as it stayed in her heart, she would have been fine. And they would have got her back on time on the blood thinners and everything would have thinned out and she would have been fine.
Wow. So as a husband, you had to be super patient with everybody and
It
these
was
new
difficult.
babies in the house.
Yeah, because at that time we didn't have the full-time studio at that time. I had moved here from my other place. Like I grew up in the Toronto area, Toronto, Ontario, for 30 years. I lived in Edmonton for 3 years, but when I moved here, until we got the photography name out there, I was just doing it part-time out of my house, and I was working a full-time job at a fiberboard plant here, and molding plant, and we were doing the 12-hour shift work. So it wasn't easy because it was what they call continental shift work. It was a 2 week period. So you would do like a 2 days on, and then you'd be off for 2 days, and then you'd be maybe 3 nights on and then off for a day and a half, night and a half, and then you'd be back on to 3 days and then 2 nights, and then you'd do the whole rotation again. So and they were 12-hour shifts. So I would be working from 7 to 7, either in evenings or days. So luckily at the time, my wife's parents, who unfortunately have passed away since then, but they were still with us at the time, and they lived right around the corner from us. So with Colleen in the hospital, if I say work the 7 o'clock in the morning shift, of course we had a 2-month-old baby when she went in, and I had a 6-year-old daughter. So I would get up in the morning. I would get them fed, get them ready to go, take them to the grandparents, drop them off, and then I would drive, get to the hospital at about 6:30 and stay for about 10 minutes with Colleen, and then get in the car and drive to my work, which happened to be about a 5-minute drive down from the hospital. Go do my 12-hour shift, get off, go see Colleen for about a half an hour. Then I would drive to the grandparents, pick up the kids, take them to the house, feed them dinner, get the other one bathed into bed for the next morning because she might have school or something in the morning, and then wait till the baby wanted to go to sleep, get her to sleep, and then get as much sleep as I could, get up in the morning, do it all over again. And if it was the other way in the evenings, my my father-in-law, mother-in-law would take the girls for a couple days and let them stay there. So I would have to just get up, do my shift, get back done at 7 in the morning, go see Colleen for about a half an hour or so. I would go pick up the girls, get them home. If it was school time, I'd get Taylor A off to school, and then the baby Peyton, I would have her for the day and hope I can get some sleep if she would let me get some sleep and feed her during the day. Sometimes I would be going 2-3 hours with the sleep, and that's it, because you have to do what you have to do, because then you
Right.
get them fed for dinner and take them to the grandparents, drop them off, and go back to work again, and they would sleep
Aren't
with the grandparents. So
aren't grandparents amazing? And to see, it comes full circle, John. You might
yeah,
be a grandparent one day and you might have those
you
responsibilities.
never know. But the good thing was, I think when it comes to something like that, you don't realize how strong you are until you're left in a situation where you have no choice. And we did this for 4 months. I would be going 4 months, and my mom would call me or see me on pictures or something, and she's like, are you eating, are you okay, because you look like you've lost a lot of weight. Because when I lose weight, you see it in here. I just get really thin here first. And I was getting like 2-3 hours sleep most of the time. So you just, for 4 months straight, that's all we did. And you do what you
Wow.
got to do. So unless I had my days off, and then of course it was different, because on my days off I can do what I have to do. But when you're working, you do what you got to do to get through it. And but we got through it, and we're all the better for it, because I think that's also why my youngest was so much of a daddy's girl. Because for that first 4 months of her life, I was basically the main parent raising her.
Yeah.
I would take her every day that I could to visit Colleen. And the best invention they ever made was the stand-up jolly jumper, which is like
I
it's like a
remember.
little thing that they just bounce up and down. It's like a
Yeah.
little seat that they sit in with springs, and they bounce up and down. You can get the wall wind, or the ones that go in the door frames, but
Yeah.
we had like an actual stand-up one that was like a frame. And I would take that to the hospital and stick it in the corner of Colleen's room and put Peyton in there, and she would jump around being happy while we're visiting with mom and that, and she'd get to hold her every now and
Oh,
then. But it was like, um, we did what we had to do, but I made sure that she got to see Peyton as much as possible, and Taylor Ray too, our 6-year-old, because she was missing mommy too. She was a total mummy's girl. And when's mommy coming home type of thing. So every
right.
day, if we could, we would take the girls to go see mom at least every day, or at least a couple of times throughout the week,
Oh,
to make sure. Because I think that added to her depression in the hospital too, because she's got a newborn baby at home that she doesn't get to see as much, and a 6-year-old that she's missing her girls. So
wow.
I think you learn what's important in life, put it that way.
For sure. And she works with you at the studio now?
She does. So she comes in, and because it's just us, we don't have a staff or anything. So she'll come in and do a lot of editing for me. I taught her Photoshop probably like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and she's probably better than I am at it now. Technical wise, I'm better than her. I can figure out how to do something, or if there's something we want to do if we don't know it. But when it comes to creativity and actually sitting down and doing it, she 9 times out of 10 will blow me out of the water. So she does a lot of my touch ups for me and things like that. And she's faster. I get easy distracted because I'm trying to edit. Plus, I've got emails coming in. Plus, I'll have my social media open. Then I'm the one that deals with all the clients. So I get the phone calls coming in. And so I got to deal with that. Or I get distracted very easily. So something that might take me a half an hour to do, she can have it done in 10 minutes probably. So.
Oh, wow. Because she's a woman. Come on, she's a mom too. She knows how to multitask. She deals with children, right?
No, she's a good one. I think I'll keep her for a little longer.
Yeah, I think so too. That sounds like a good idea. You guys sound like a good match and a good team.
We are a good team, and we're our good yin and yang, because we're different in our own ways, but at the same time, we're a lot alike. Well, there's times where we'll just finish each other's sentences, or I'll go to say something, she'll say the same thing at the exact same time. But then there are differences too, and there's a lot of stuff that we do have our differences, but that makes it work, I think. So, and not a lot of people
That's
can work
that's
20.
important.
Yeah, we're together basically almost 24/7, because we come here and we work throughout the day, and then we'll go home, and then we're at home doing our family stuff in the evenings and weekends. So not a lot of people can work with their spouse and also see them at home again that night. So
Right. Rob gave me some advice a
mhm,
long time ago, maybe like a decade and a half ago. He told me to find what he found, to
yeah,
find the keel to my sailboat. And
yeah,
I didn't know what that was, but he had to explain it because
yeah,
his wife is like the keel. It's kind of like the balance, I
yeah,
guess, for the boat to keep it.
mhm. Yeah, because they work together too.
Yeah, they work
He
together.
does the photography and the Photoshop, and she does all the sales and the accounting and the dealing with customers and things like that. So
Yeah.
they work well together.
And he's an extrovert and she's an introvert, but
Hmm.
they have created their own kind of balance in their life, which is
Exactly.
important.
It is. And my wife is kind of the same way. She takes care of the books and things like that. Um, I deal with the clients because my wife is like Tina. She's an introvert, so she likes to be behind the scenes. So I'm the one that does the phone calling. I'm the one that does the face to face with people. But if I have an email I want to send out to somebody, if it's retraining to certain things, some of them I'll just send out myself. But other ones, I'll sort of write the email and give it to her and say, this is what I want to say. And then she'll go and reword it for me to make it sound that much better, because she's a little bit better with putting the words together properly to make it sound professional and things like that when it comes to that kind of a thing. So
Oh,
that's what we work well.
that's good. It makes me think of something that I did yesterday. I don't, okay, it's not a secret. I don't always engage brain before I open my mouth.
Yeah.
But most times I'll write a really professional looking email and it will be smooth and to the point. But I messaged someone yesterday, and I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's just too embarrassing and I don't want to know people to know what it was. But I ended up sending somebody a message, and I read it through and I'm like, well, that sounds about the gist of what they're kind of looking for.
Yeah.
And then when I sent it, I didn't think about it, whatever. And then the next day, I saw, I saw the person, and they didn't seem to want to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It didn't, if you could press the unsend button, if there was an unsend button, because I just felt like, oh, no. Anyway, so I'm still a single woman and I have my own issues to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always say the right thing, but that's okay. I'm still learning.
But like going back even to, like you said, with Rob, where he's talking about find your purpose of why you're doing things. There's a good set of books out there, and I have them. I've read bits and pieces. I have to read the whole thing still, but there's two books I was given by a friend of mine here. Actually in my business group, the BNI that I'm in, and I had won this. She was a speaker at it, and then when they did the draw, I won, and she gave me these two books. One is they're by a writer named Simon. I think it's Sinek, Sinek,
Isn't
and
he?
it's called Find Your Why, and the other one is Start with Why. And it basically teaches you to find your why you do things. So it could be your family, it could be your it could be anything, but what is the purpose that you're doing this for? Find what your why is and why you're doing it, and then build on that. And it's a good premise to start with.
That could almost be like a premise for counseling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yep. Why do we behave and why do we do the things
Exactly.
we do?
But it's even with your business, like with my photography. When I do my photography business, find what my why is. Why do I do my photography business? Is it because I want to make lots of money? Is it because I want to support my wife and kids? Is it because I want to buy a big house? Is it because just the gratification of being an artist and you want to make good? So none of those are wrong, and none of them are all completely right. You just got to find out what your why is of why you're doing something. And then from there, you can build on how can you take that and build on that to be successful. And you might go to find what your why is and say, you know what, this is my why, but what I'm doing now is never going to get me to accomplish that. So now you got to think of what will make me accomplish that and make me happy. And so it's a very much a self-discovering type of attitude.
I'm definitely still on that journey, because if I've looked back on the different kinds of speaking businesses and speaking events that I've hosted, why am I still continuing to try to share people's stories? Why is this not going to be my end result? Because I'm always looking to start something new because I don't feel satisfied. Why do I don't know. I don't know. I need to feel like stimulated at all times. Sometimes I get just over it and I need to do something else, which can kind of be a good thing. But
and I surround myself with not just successful people, but successful people that I believe in. So like Rob is one person. I've known him now for probably 15 years. We've become such good friends that a lot of stuff, especially photography wise, I take him as a mentor because he is 14 years my elder. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have. He's very successful at it. Why wouldn't I want to learn how he did that? Because
you're 50 years old.
I'm 50 years old. I just turned 50 actually about a week or two ago.
Oh, happy late birthday.
Well, thank you. And But I mean, why wouldn't you want to surround yourself with people like that? Same with the one who gave me that book I told you, like the Find Your Why and Start Your Why,
Yeah.
is a friend of mine, Shauna Perry. She owns the Lavely Health Center here down just a couple buildings from my studio here. And very successful entrepreneur. She's got this whole big health center that has massage therapists and chiropractors and mental health experts, and her whole business surrounds making people feel better. And when you sit and talk with her, she's one of those people that is um, very much for other people, if that makes sense. And
Selfless.
and she's successful in her business. She's successful in her life. She's got a husband and children of her own, and I think she even adopted one of her children. Like, she's just the type of person that wants to help other people, and she's successful at it. So why wouldn't I want to bring that energy into me?
Love
So
it.
those are the kind of people that I like to be around. I think that's what helps my podcast too, is I'm trying to surround myself in this podcast. Now, the podcast is of course starting to evolve a bit, where it's not always going to be about people that maybe had tragedies in their life, which is what we started, the premise started, but people that are successful, and how did they get there, and what can they do to inspire people. I'm not looking for the ones that were I would say 90% of the people that I interview are people that work their butt off to get to where they are. There's only that 5% or so of the people that are rich or successful just because mom and dad were, or grandma and grandpa were, and it was just handed down to them and they didn't have to work for it. And I don't want to stereotype those people, because some of them are still hard workers, but
Yeah.
they had that initial, they took over the family business, or they did this, or they did that. They was just given to them silver spoon type of thing. And but they still, a lot of them still work their butt off to keep it. And but I'm talking about with my show, it's more the people that had to work their way to get there. They maybe started just a middle class, or under middle class, lower class, poor, um, and now they're successful. And successful to me doesn't mean riches and money and things like that, but maybe they have a beautiful family, they have a house with a roof over their head, they have a car to get to work in that. They might still only be making middle class salaries, but they're happy. And I don't mind even interviewing people like that, because they're still a success. And my a lot of the successful people are people that failed once, twice, three times. Look at Trump. He failed on so many businesses, and yet he's one of the richest people in the world, and he was the president of the United States. But he didn't get that just by giving it to him. He failed many businesses, and whether people like him or don't like him, they can't disagree that he did what he had to do, and he made all this money, and he's a success. Whatever you consider success are. And same with me. A lot of the stuff I've done, I failed maybe miserably at the beginning. And I was just the type, I always wanted to do my own business. I just didn't know how to get into it. But um, I always felt that I didn't want to work for somebody else and make them money. I wanted to be
Hmm.
able to do it myself. And it wasn't until I was willing to just go out and do it that I find I was a little happier now, and doing my own thing, and I could pick my own hours. And if I want to take my daughters away for a couple days to Niagara Falls, I can just go on the calendar and book those days off and tell people, okay, studio's gonna be closed on this day and that day, and I can just go and do it. Financially, maybe it's not the best choice, but
You
I
have
know
the
I have the option. I can do that.
right, and it's nice to have the freedom to do that.
Exactly.
What I was gonna say was that like another definition of success, or how to define somebody,
Mhm.
is how they treat other people.
Mhm. I agree. And I find that with a lot of people. There's so many people I find out there that are very successful financially, they're very successful business wise, they're very business savvy, but they're terrible with people. And that's why they have all these other people to do a lot of their stuff, because they're the ones that are the persons. This person is just out there for the money. And if that's what they want to be, that's fine. But are they happy? You never know. Maybe they are.
Right. But well, it kind of goes hand in hand. You have to be good with people to be good
Mhm.
with business.
Agreed. And that's what my business is, people. So when I'm doing not just a podcast, like my podcast, I make nothing. I don't make any money off my
No, me
podcast.
neither.
I just do it for the pleasure of doing it, meeting these new people. And who knows, in the future, as we go on, maybe we can get my YouTube channel to enough people on there that we can get it monetized. We can maybe get some sponsors, and then we could put some of that money in towards the mechanics of the show itself, maybe
Yeah.
upgrading equipment, maybe being able to. I have a Facebook page for it, and I can't be there all the time, so I actually have 3 friends of mine locally here that I put on as moderators on that page. They were willing to do it. They don't get paid for it. They're just volunteering their time to sort of help
Oh,
me
that's
monitor
nice.
that page, make sure nothing's wrong going on it. People aren't being arseholes on there, excuse the language. But
Right.
we just want to make sure that it's a safe platform for people to go and share their stories or say, hey, that was a great interview. Because people are on my shows are pouring their heart out. They're giving you their most intimate details about something tragic that happened to them, and I
Yeah.
don't want people going on there and doing stupid things on the page. So I
No.
can't be there all the time. So maybe it can get to the point where I can start paying some of these people to do that for me, because I
Wouldn't that
think
be
they should be
great?
rewarded. I would love that. And I'm not looking at right now making a lot of money off the podcast. It's gratifying for me to be able to do it. I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy meeting these new people and finding out their stories. And I think it makes me a better person listening to their stories, because then you start taking what these people say, whether it was yourself on your show, whether it was Rob when he was on, or some of these other people like Carrie and that, taking what they have to say and sort of incorporating into my life a little bit. It makes you a better person. And like you said, you have to be a people person to do this type of show like you and I are
Yeah.
doing. You have to be a people person as a photographer, because I'm dealing with people left and right. I'm dealing with kids. I do Santa pictures every year. And you got to have patience with kids sometimes. You can't just go off the handle. You have to be patient. And it might take 15 minutes to get that passport photo of that little 3-year-old. But eventually, hopefully, you got that shot. And, but
You must have so much patience.
so you have to be a people person when you're in my
Yeah.
profession. So you learn that more. And maybe that goes into what we were talking about my daughter's accident, why I was so down to earth in the car and relaxed and saying, like, yeah, I'm nervous and I'm scared and I'm shivering inside, but trying to
You're
keep a cool head. It was just for my training, maybe.
you had to assess the situation.
Yes.
The
And
first thing I thought of when you told me that was, oh my gosh, the parents couldn't be on the accident scene. Like usually the the department, like the fire
mhm,
department or the police officers will call the parents
yeah,
and say, come down to the hospital. And
yeah. But they didn't know who the parents were, of course. And but Peyton had some friends with her at the time. So they asked the friends, could you give them the parents call, let them know? And they said, yeah. And they must have told them that we were coming down. So they waited for us because she wasn't severe enough that they had to rush her there.
okay, did she
But
break any bones?
she ended up with a broken bone in her left wrist. She had a broken the bone here that of the arm that goes into the shoulder that had broke,
Ooh,
which
the
apparently is it's a very common thing apparently when you get a break over here. It wasn't the shoulder. She always says she broke her shoulder, but it wasn't actually the shoulder bone. It was the bone that goes into the shoulder, and she broke that.
okay.
Luckily, it was a clean break, so because of that, it was able to heal very easily.
You can't
And
put that
she
in
had
a
a mild concussion too.
oh wow. How did that must have taken some time to heal?
A little bit. The concussion wasn't as bad because it wasn't a major one, but she did have a bit of a concussion. The arm was in a sling, that where the shoulder arm was broken. That was in a sling, and her other one was in a full arm, like a cast all the way down to her elbow. And so we used to joke with her and saying, if you're gonna break bone in your wrist and your arm, can't you do it on the same arm? So at least you had one arm to use. Because instead, my wife and I had to help her do everything for like a month or 2 weeks to a month, because it still took about, I want to say about 3 weeks maybe for the arm to fully heal. It was about 3 weeks to a month. And then her wrist took another couple weeks after that. So within a month and a half to 2 months, she was pretty healed. But it was a lot. Like she
No.
had scrapes on her legs and everything. And because she went right up, hit the front windshield. And when they slammed on the brakes, I guess they flung her off and she flew, I think they said something like 50 feet or 20 meters, I think it was. So she flew pretty good. So,
Okay.
but no, luckily, I think her gymnastics training came into hand because, like I said, other than a mild concussion, she didn't have any head injuries or anything. And that was one thing they checked, of course. No internal bleeding in her brain or head or anything,
Oh, good.
just a little mild concussion. And, that was it. And then the arm, of course, and the wrist, but, it took a while, but, Yeah, she's our clumsy one anyway. She's the type that'll get up and turn around to walk out the room, and she'll walk into a wall or something. Like she's always been like that. So fall up the stairs, but I think she gets that from dad too, because I kind of
Oh,
fall there sometimes too.
I
I
fall
don't
up
fall
the
down.
stairs too.
I don't fall down. I'm going too fast. I'll fall up. So
Oh no. Oh, I've fallen down the stairs before. Oh my God. We're not gonna talk about that.
but like I said, a lot of stuff that's happened to me has been all I'm getting. Like even with my photography, like I worked at a company called Muscle Mag International from I want to say it was like 92 till about 2001. So almost 10 years, right? 9.5 years. And in 2000, I think it was 1999, 2000, I was doing a photo shoot in Chicago of a friend of ours. She was a fitness model, and her husband invited us down to shoot there. And there was a buddy of mine that came with me to help me out. And we were driving back from Chicago to Toronto, which is about, I'm guessing now, I can't remember. I think it was about an 8-hour drive. I can't remember, but we left like midnight their time, which is a couple hours behind us. And at about, I want to say probably about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning or something like that, our time here in Ontario, Eastern time. I ended up having a bad car accident just from being tired and fatigued. And I went right into an 18 wheeler who then I just did a bad lane change, didn't check my blind spots. And I guess in my mind thought I could just change, not even looking. I went right into the front of him, and he sort of T-boned me and flung me right off the highway through a guardrail. And apparently, going by what witnesses said, um, we went in the air, spun a couple times, landed, spun, rolled back up in the air and back down. We ended up probably about 50 to 100 yards away from the highway, the 401 highway. Um, it was between Windsor, Ontario and London, Ontario. And basically landed on the driver's side sideways right on there. And other than my friend had a cut on his hand right here from punching the glass to get out, I ended up finally climbing out the top two because that's the only way we could get out. That was the only injuries we had other than being shooken up like you wouldn't believe and just in shock basically. Um, and from that was the day that I was probably, I want to say late 20s by that time, early 30s maybe. And at that time, yeah, it would have been about 28, I guess. And that's when I said, you know what, life's too short. You never know when it's your time. Something like that could have killed us right away. And luckily, somebody upstairs was watching us, and we both came out with no injuries, no concussions, nothing.
Oh my
The
gosh.
car was wrecked. It was just a little Ford Escort of my dad's, but it was totaled. But yeah, we came out unscathed. And from that day forward, I said, I'm going to start taking more risks and chances in life, and positive ones, of course. Like I'm not going to
Right.
go and play chicken with a train or something, but
No, start your own business.
exactly. So I remember it was about a year or so after that, I told my boss at Muscle Mag, who helped me a lot with getting my photography career going, that I appreciated everything he'd done for me, but I'm going to try and make it now and do my own and go full time with the photography. And so around 2001, I left Muscle Mag and went full time. I even moved back home to my parents' place to save money that way a little bit. And did that for a couple years, and then I moved to Edmonton with my ex at the time and lived there for about 3 years working at a camera store. I never would have thought of moving out of province and that at that time. I mean, my whole family's in the Toronto area. But no, I'm like, you know what? I got to do this. So I moved there and I lived there for 3 years, and we broke up like probably 8 months later, but I still stayed there because I liked it there. I moved in with a buddy of mine, and I still lived there. And then I moved back here with my wife now that I have, Colleen, and we had had our babies. Now it's like, to me, I think too, what it was is after that accident, it was funny. I think about 6 months later, and that I was thinking about stuff, and on the radio came that Garth Brooks song, what's it called, outside the fire, or standing outside the fire, I think it's called.
Okay.
And you listen to that lyric in the chorus is, life is not tried, it is merely survived if you're standing outside the fire. And I started putting that together and thinking, you know what? That's basically how my life was at the time. I was standing outside the fire looking in. And if I want to do what I want to do in life and make things work and be successful, I'm going to have to get into that fire and just go with it. So that's what I did. I wasn't going to stand outside the fire anymore. I was going to get in there and do what I had to do. So instead of having my life being tried, I didn't want to merely survive anymore. I wanted to try life and make it work. So,
And thrive.
and thrive. And that's the day I heard that song. And within a week after that, that's when I went into Muscle Mag and gave my 2 weeks notice and left. So
Good for you. And looking at the stage you are in your career and your life now, you worked so hard to get to where you are now. Are you proud of where you are, Don?
I am. I mean, there's a lot still that I have to accomplish and want to accomplish. I mean, we're always going to strive to do that
Yeah.
next thing, but I've got my beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters. I have a successful photography studio that's still going, whereas in this day and age, an actual brick and mortar studio is not a lot out there anymore. Most people are doing it at their home or on location all the time. So I have this. We're going on our 5th year in this location, and we've been a full-time studio now for the past, well, since 2008, I guess it was 2009, sorry, is when we basically took it on. Late 2008, early 2009, and here we are 2022. So what's that, 13, 14 years later, and we're still full-time, just doing this and doing my podcast, and haven't had to work for anybody else in that whole 14 years, and loving it. And
How's your boss? Do you like your boss?
well, yeah, she'll tell you that she's the boss, of course. So when you look at my studio, it's got a big sign up there that says John A. Butler Photography, but that doesn't mean that I'm the boss. My wife always says she's the boss. If you go on Facebook and look up her profile on Facebook, it says under occupation, it says boss at John A. Butler Photography. So
I love
it's on
it.
Facebook, so it must be true. So whenever I'm talking to people and I'm like, I'm not the boss, I'm only the boss when she says I can be the boss.
Good man.
I knew when we got married, what was hers, and what's mine is hers. And that's why we get along very well.
Oh, good.
But no, we're happy.
That's what's important. Everybody has their balance, right? Whatever works
Exactly.
for you is what works for you.
Exactly. Now the goal is to not only make this photography, we're doing changes with the photography. We don't do the same things we use. We don't do weddings anymore. We don't do newborns anymore. We sort of scaled it down to more portrait work, doing family portraits, and I do a lot of headshots and
I saw
corporate
that on
portraits and a lot of corporate branding shots, and we do more of that kind of stuff. And the events, like we do Petawawa hockey and soccer, their team and individual pictures. We do the Santa pictures, so we do stuff like that. But we're scaling down more and more all the time to where we want to be more of a niche of what we want to do. And the podcast, I mean, that's been taken off. I mean, it's our 3rd podcast. I do it with my high school for fun, with my old high school friends. Rob and I do our photography one, no BS photo buzz.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good one. And you guys are so, like, you both are photographer pros.
Yeah. And I usually let him take the lead on that one most of the time. I just sit in the background and jump in every now and then, but I let him take the lead. And then of course, Butler Babbles my baby, and I want that to grow. And my goal is I have the Facebook page, I have the YouTube channel, and I stream it live to both, but I'm trying to gain more on the YouTube if I can, because I want to get that listenership up and going. So I'm trying to figure out ways to get that more subscribers into there. And
me too. I don't have any viewers on YouTube, but they always go to my website, candidmoments.ca.
So what I'm thinking of doing, and maybe you could try the same thing, is I'm going to still stream live to both facets. So it'll stream live to my John A. Butler photography, or sorry, to my Butler's Babble podcast Facebook page group. I also stream it live to my main page, like my own John Butler personal one, for all my friends can watch.
Okay.
But I also stream it live at the same time to the YouTube channel. And the reason I do it live like that, live streaming, is it allows for people who are watching it at the time can add questions or add comments that we can bring up on the screen. So I like that. But what I'm thinking of, after it's done, both systems automatically archive them on those channels. So if you missed it, you can still go to my Facebook podcast page or the YouTube and watch the replay of it at any time. So what I'm thinking of doing is on my Facebook one, after the live is done, I might take the archived version of it off of the Facebook page and just put a link there saying, for all those who did show up, thank you for coming and watching it. If you missed it, you can still see the replay. Go to this link and it'll take them to the YouTube channel. And then they have to watch it through the YouTube channel. And that way, maybe they'll subscribe there and it'll get more people there. So the only way they'll see it through Facebook is if they watch it live. If they're not watching it live, they can watch the replay on the YouTube channel. So that's
That would be good to get more listeners on YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I'm going to try to see if I can sneak that in and see if it works. And if it does, that's awesome. They could still watch it. You don't have to have a YouTube account to watch it.
Yeah.
You just have to be
That's
able
a
to click
that's
on
a,
it.
that's a good idea. We're just about out of time,
Mhm.
but I thoroughly enjoyed having a candid moment with you today, John. This was great.
No, I enjoyed it completely.
It's nice to connect with you again, and nice to see you go after your big badass dreams. It's great.
And thank you for having me. And congratulations with all your success too, with not only your speaking engagements, but what we're doing right now on your candid moments here. Congratulations on that, and your book too. I loved your book. I thought it was awesome, and it's on its way to you right now. I sent it out this morning, so you can sign it
Oh,
for me.
okay. And so there's a return address on there.
Yeah,
You
my
will be
return address. Although you don't have to, just give it to Rob because he's coming here on September 8th and 9th for the weekend to do
you're
his
still
fairy portraits here. So you could just give it to him and he'll bring it.
okay. Give me an excuse to see him, and then
There you
I'll
go.
have your address for my Christmas cards.
Exactly. I'll force him to come see you. I'll let him know today that you're getting the book, and when you're ready, he's to go to you and get it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll get in touch with him.
And anybody that hasn't read your book, get out there and read her book. It's amazing.
It's all right. It's
I loved it. It's personal, it's in depth, but I love the poetry in it too. And
thank you.
I still love that last line that we did on my podcast about the lemonade. I think that was amazing.
Yeah, you have to read it to find out. But this show is not about me. It's about you. Thank you, John.
No, thank you.
You've overcome so much, and it's lovely to see you shine.
Same here.
John Butler, everybody. Bye,
Thank you.
John.
Bye.